Today, I'm going to talk about the why behind the influence. So, welcome to the first day of the Influence Challenge and also Friday Night Live. Now, why is the why so important? Because it makes us do things. It makes us do things that we do want, and it makes us things we don't want. And it makes us do things that we are like, well, doesn't really matter to me. Just let's go do it. But it's interesting if you think about it, how our why changes over the years, especially when it comes to influence. So this week, I got some questions asked on LinkedIn. One of them had to do, what would you do when a client of yours is in a crisis situation? Talk about influence. The other one had to do with, how are you teaching your kids to be resilient? Talking about role model, again, influence. And the last one had to do with projects in organizations and how can you get people to cooperate. So let's look at those different things from a, well, I don't know if it's a different perspective, but from various perspectives. So if I just start with myself, so we're talking about kids. So let's go up, when it comes to age range. So, how can we make kids more resilient? Well, that's a very good question. And what I know is a lot of kids out there are actually, they question themselves. They have doubts about, are they good enough? All everything has to do with, are they being seen, heard, understood? Are their friends at school, how do they get along with their brothers and sisters, if they have brothers and sisters? How about the family life? How are their parents? And what if they only have one parent? Those things can cause a lot of doubt. And the question, of course, is, how can we, being older than the children, influence them in a positive manner so that they actually do believe in themselves? Now, the first thing I do want to point out is, of course, the role of the teacher. And the question nowadays is, does the teacher have enough knowledge, experience, and time and possibilities to actually help out every kid and make them really feel confident? I hear so many different stories, and it all depends also on what kind of kid you've got. I mean, is if as soon as the child has something special or extraordinary, then it already gets harder because, well, when we're talking about the teacher, they, of course, have to deal with a whole bunch of children. But let's be honest, what happens to you as a child defines you for the rest of your life. So when I was a kid, wasn't accepted because of the way I looked, hair color, eyes, everything. I got bullied. I didn't know how to behave. I got bullied as early as 4 years old, as far as I can remember. And, well, sometimes I do talk about it, but, when I was around 11 years old, there was someone who basically tried to kill me. Well, two people actually did, at the playground. And the good thing was that, apart from going to school, I also went to jujitsu, and that toughened me up. So there was a great idea from my dad. He said, you and your siblings, you go and you get training. So every week we would go there. It would make us very strong. And also, when people were wanting to do something, well, except for that time that they tried to strangle me, it was more like, do I really care about certain things? And of course, circumstances also make me that way. So what I remember was I was a kid who was left alone. I wasn't good at sports. And let's face it, I'm not the only one who's not good at sports. I was good when it came to mathematics and other stuff because my parents would do so many things with us. Walking to school, my father would do math with us. And, when I would look at the numbers on the doors of the streets, then I would see if I could make some sort of sum out of it. And I would subtract, I would multiply, whatever, divide, and try to get that number to end up. So if the thing would be 824, then 8 divided by 2 is 4. So it has to do with a lot of being challenged, how we get to use our minds and our brains and what's expected from us. Now, here was the thing my dad said, don't you dare, don't you dare flunking. So, no, there was no thought even about it. Well, actually, there was one time at high school, and then we talked about it, and he said, don't you dare. Okay, well, end of story. My dad had a very strong opinion about what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And then, of course, there was my mom, the influence of my mom. And my mom was always someone who was eager to learn. So she played the piano like 3 hours a day. But I remember her doing French. We would have those record boxes for French and German and Spanish. And even till the last day that my mom was still around, she actually asked me, can you do Spanish with me? And having done Spanish in class and absolutely not being good at it, I was like, well, pronunciation and everything, it's not going to happen from a book. Little did I know that pretty soon after my mom passed away, a neighbor next door would tell me about Duolingo. And all of a sudden I was doing Spanish. And now I know some people who live in Spain. And, well, it's nice to actually understand them and what they are saying, and knowing that if I go there now, I will be able to cope within the country. Now, apart from that, I always had this fascination for hearing Spanish in American movies. Yeah, believe it or not. And so, yeah, when we come and talk about influences, TV, yeah, absolutely influence. My parents absolutely influence. The kids at school absolutely influence. The teachers who did help me out or didn't help me out, absolutely their influence. The jiu-jitsu teacher, same story. I fell flat on my face. Oh, that toughens you up, he said. True, by the way, absolutely true. But, I still have the scars on there. That's a little less nice. So I don't think it really moved me what happened. Of course, that attempt to basically kill me, strangle me, that has left its marks. Even if it's only physical, because I still have the physical results of it. I cannot have much pressure on here. But apart from that, I was very withdrawn. I didn't know how to interact with other kids. And, the friends I had were also the ones who were not accepted by others. So, yeah, it made sense that, in some aspects, well, kids didn't know how to interact with me. I didn't know how to interact with them. And, then pretty soon you're the exception. So regardless of what the cause was at first, the result was they didn't know how to interact with me. I didn't know how to interact with them. And so I became very introvert. I was very shy. And speaking up, oh my God, I didn't know. Actually, what my parents said, just ignore them. I'm not sure if that was the right way to do it, but that was the advice, and that's basically pretty much what happened. Okay, life goes on the way it is. The good news, however, is that there's so much more known when it comes to kids. And, well, being an adult now, I don't want those kids to experience the same thing I do. So, one of the things that I lacked was confidence confidence to talk to others, play with others, believe that they wanted something that was positive. I don't believe I was very trusting, not towards other children, except then those other ones who, well, also were on the receiving end. So, we could pretty much trust one another. So that was good. But then again, becoming a teenager, I also lost friendships all of a sudden, which I didn't understand, which was also influenced by others, as in they were part of a group, an organization who said, well, now it's time to stop interacting with other people. Something to do with cults and all that thing. Now, growing up, at some point there was this guy in my life. I was doing a holiday job and he trusted me. He gave me the boost of confidence. So when it comes to influence, that guy influenced me a lot because he helped me to see that I was worthwhile. He said, well, what do you want to do? This one or the other one? Well, if you do the other one, then do remember that you still have to do this one. But the mere fact that he gave me a choice already made a difference. And he saw me for who I was. And I believe that, I'm not sure if he saw the shy kid because I never talked to him about it. But I do know that he helped me build my confidence. And I'll be forever grateful to the guy for doing so. So getting back to the whole influence thing, at some point I started working. Yes, the Academy of Arts was in between. And that's when we talk about influence where I saw so many things. So one of the questions at the LinkedIn site was about how can you get others to cooperate in projects, which actually was also based on distrust. And that's something that I know all too well because I've been in so many different places, working with so many people from different companies. The shortest time that I would work somewhere was like 1 month. The longest was maybe 18 months. That was when I was sent to a certain company to fill in for people who weren't there. And then when I started working in the company, for the company itself, then the longest period of time was, I don't know, 1.5 years, 2.5 years, not much longer. It was, for some reason, it was always limited to about 3 years. Well, yeah, to a degree. So I might go to subdivision and then something else would happen too. What I saw when it came to influence, and I'll look at myself too. So when I started working, especially when I started working again after the Academy of Arts, there was this thing called growth. I was surrounded by all these other colleagues. There was a whole system behind it. And we were challenged to go to the next level. We were expected to go to the next level. We were expected to want to go to the next level. And yes, we had to apply to the job. We had to talk to psychologists. So they knew that we were eager to go do it, eager to study, eager to do whatever it took to climb. And of course, with every time that we would get to the next level, there was also pay involved, but there was also recognition involved. You would get a different title. And well, we would train one another. So you would get more of a seniority position, and you would get broader knowledge. So there was something like, hey, there are the managers, there are the leaders out there. We want to be there. And we basically did anything and everything just to get there. But there was a lot of trust. And because there was trust and we were surrounded by equals, and it was a lot of fun too, there was so much motivation and incentive to go and do the things. And the good thing about it was, in the organization where I was at, the people had people skills. The managers had people skills. But at the same time, I was also stationed at different businesses. And what I saw over there, and later on, when I was working all the time at a certain business, was reorganizations. I saw people who were done with reorganizations, who were just waiting to retire. I saw people who were afraid to lose their jobs because two businesses fused and they merged. And they had to learn the new things from the other organization and vice versa. And people didn't want that. So, at one of the companies, there was XA and there was XB. XA didn't want to do the things from XB. XB didn't want to do the things from XA. And we, as the external party, were supposed to do it all, which was good. And it was nice. And because we were not the only one to be hired from an external company. So there were a lot of external companies. There was this feeling of, hey, I'm surrounded by like-minded people. And we would talk about, hey, what do you do? And what have you studied? And of course, we would talk about cars. That was the one thing we would talk about. What kind of car do you have? And, so we all would get a car because we had to go places. And that was part of the deal. It was, a sweet deal. Let's put it that way. So seeing what reorganizations did with people, and especially later on, being in the companies, also going from one division to another one, and then seeing people almost cringe when another reorganization was announced. Because back in the day, it was like you work like forever. And then at some point, like I said, you would retire. And one of the major things that people would do, what other people would say, basically had to do, if I don't do the work that you assign me to do, I am being fired. So basically, money, basic security. And I could see how people could suffer from that part. Now, here's the thing. What I also saw was managers come and go, interim managers, other ones. And also because of the reorganizations, people would constantly change, especially managers would change. And people were promised certain things when they would start at a company. Same applied to me. And then when there was a change in management, then all of a sudden everything changed. And that meant that promises were broken because, well, it was said, not written on paper. It was said to you, this is what we promised. But it was never, because it was only said orally and it was never put on paper. Well, that was a bit of a problem when management would change. So, of course, the question was, who knew about all the old agreements? Where were they? And could you actually still say, hey, this was what we agreed upon? Or did you have to go along with going to a lower level and maybe do more work just so you could hold on to your salary? And maybe you would even have to apply to going along with a lower salary. Now, when we look about this, just talking about work, I've shown you a whole bunch of different things. I've talked to you about role models, especially at the first company I worked, Pink Elephant. Those people who trained me were role models for me. And well, they also had a fictional role model, which was like, hey, you become a manager. That seemed like the summum. So when at some point I became a manager, I was like, hey, I've done it all. And I wasn't even 30 years old. Little did I know. So, but there was also fear of losing the job, fear of not having an income. There was, I cannot say force, but people did things they didn't like to do, that they didn't sign up for, but they were like, well, I need to do it because otherwise. And as a result, I also saw a lot of people not being motivated at all, becoming depressed, getting burned out, especially when people were being fired because the stockholders needed more money, as in a profit. Then, and there were not enough people for the amount of tasks that needed to be done. So what does that do to a person when it comes to experience? Well, trust goes out the window. There you go. And the result is that further down the line, when people are still working, trust, projects, promises, nah, you say it now, but in a year, 2 years, 3 years, everything will change again. And especially having seen how organizations started to change, yeah, I can say I understand why a lot of people didn't want to do anymore what they set out to do. So trust is one of the most important things. So people need a better experience to actually go for it again, especially when it comes to projects. And well, the question, of course, is how can you get people to work together, especially when one was after the job of the other one? And what if one came from XA and the other came from XB? Do you trust one another? And those things about trust and being willing to work with one another, that's a big if, especially if you go to a different organization. So you come and you are newbie. So even when there's a merger going on, if XA is still in the same company and in the same building, and XB come from a different building and they have to work with completely different colleagues, well, that's kind of hard. So trust and wanting to work together needs to be earned, and it also needs to be talked about. So if you want to know why people do certain things, well, experiences at the top level. Tomorrow we are going to talk about the how. But today we are going to talk about why. So that was a very interesting thing for me to talk about because I'd seen it. And, for years, I always wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be able to go in the organization and tell them, hey, see your people, see what's going on. And it's one of those things that's high on my list. Now, when we talk about the why and we talk about crisis situations, well, especially in crisis situations, people do not know what to do. And if there's someone able to help them out, of course they want that. And when they see that person can help them out more often, then that person automatically becomes their role model if they do a good job. And well, I call myself lucky because I've been able to help out other people due to things I've learned myself. So why do I have role models nowadays? Because I'm no longer working for a boss. I'm my own boss. But that's specifically it. Nowadays, I lack the incentive, the colleagues. You know, when going to work, you always knew what you were going to do. And I could come up with all the things myself. That wasn't the point. But there was always something to do, with emails, phone calls, finding out, hey, where are you at? New things to do, sorting things out, making my own job easier. So, interacting with people. I always loved interacting with people. Deadlines, of course. And nowadays, as an entrepreneur, things are so different. Until I start to talk about today, because today is the first day of the Influence Challenge. And there is a why behind why I'm doing it. And the why has to do with there is so much to share when it comes to influence. But earlier today, I was thinking, okay, I've done an Influence Challenge before. That's not new. But I want to grow. I want to improve. I want to do things differently at a better level. That's one. So one of the things that I actually want is to put on the website, this is day one. Okay, you can sign up. You can already see day one. You can see day two tomorrow. And then at some point, day one will disappear. Day three will show up. Day two will disappear. I don't know yet if it's going to be 3 or 5 days. On one hand, I think about 3. The other, I'm thinking about 5, because when you talk about showing things and then having them disappear, that's kind of cool to see, especially when it's longer than 3 days. I might actually do it an entire week. I don't know just yet. Depends on everything that's going on. But it's a decision on my end. And here's the thing. No one tells me what I need to do or not need to do. And that's also a pitfall. So the why in this case is related to what do I see others do? Are there other role models I see telling me like, hey, this is going to work out? Well, nowadays I know there are challenges which are 3 days, which is long enough. You can do them 5 days. You can even do them 7 days. But the really long challenges are no longer done. And so it's, in the end, it's all up to us. And I like a challenge. So for me, why can others influence me, as in why do I look at certain role models, is because I've seen them do it. And I'm like, I want to be able to do it too. Why? Because I want to leave a legacy, a legacy where people are heard, seen, valued, whether it's in life, whether it's on a physical level regarding their health, whether it has to do with a mental level because of who they are, whether it's at the home situation or whether it's at work. I want people to be happy and to have self-respect and to show others that same respect as well. And it's so important that people are being understood for why they do certain things or why they cannot do certain things. And if I can change that, well, wouldn't that be cool? So being a role model for others because of my own circumstances and my own experiences, that's amazing. But seeing others being able to do it and being part of the 2%, that is also like, hey, I want to get there. I want to do it. So the why I let others influence me also has to do with why do I want to do it myself? And that has to do with me influencing myself. It's something I'm going to talk about probably on the 3rd day, maybe a little bit today, because I think it's one of the most interesting things when you think about it. How do we influence ourselves? And especially, what motivation do we have to actually say, hey, let's go do this? Is it curiosity? Is it courage? What reason do we have to actually say, let's go do it? And now let's turn that around. Why are there a lot of people who don't do it? So I talked a little bit about people being in a crisis situation, for instance, clients being in a crisis situation. And well, the first thing that comes to mind is fear for the unknown, fear because of disappointing not only others, but especially themselves. You know, if you don't do it, then at least you can say, oh, I failed at it. So, and it sounds a little bit weird, but let's be honest, a lot of people on a subconscious level, they don't do things because, well, they might fail at it. And what does that tell themselves? That when they get that message, I failed myself. Well, they don't want to feel that way. So then we get back to other circumstances. What if they never felt understood or they didn't exactly know what to do? That doesn't help either. And when you feel like you're in a world where everyone seems to be talking and acting in a different way than you do, then who's going to help you to make sense of the world and to have a normal functioning life in that same world? And especially when you have experienced trauma in your life, say very unexpected things. So all of a sudden, family member is gone, your partner is gone, you get laid off and you didn't see it coming, you got a certain illness and you didn't see it coming, but maybe you actually experienced something where your life was in danger. And, you know, it's not a topic that I frequently talk about, but what if you have fought for your country or for other people? Well, that leaves its toll on you because there's very different thing as opposed to being in a war zone fighting for your life versus being in the normal world and acting accordingly. That's, problematic. But what if you are prone to sound or touch or smell? What if you have a sensitivity disorder? What if you cannot handle unexpected sounds or you cannot handle unexpected touch? And you are supposed to, live life according to other people, 30 people in the same place. And, you know, doing everything because, well, everybody gets laid off. So nowadays with IT, you have to be able to do everything, but actually you cannot do it because you can only focus on one thing at a time. Who's going to help you out when it comes to these kind of things? What if you get assignments, but you hear one thing, whereas they say another? And not because you don't want to understand them, but because you might take things so literally that where the other assumes, oh, you take this and you look at it from the most logical way. Yeah, what's the logical way? And well, try to maintain yourself in such a world. So why can people influence you and why can circumstance influence you? Well, simply because not only because of the circumstances, but only because your brain might be wired differently or your body might be wired differently. There are people who get tired really easily, not because they are lazy, but because something is going on. But if people don't understand that and they are like, come on, go do it, go work, that's not going to work. And of course, when you're in a situation when you need money or you have no choice where you want to work and you have to go do it, well, those are hard times. And that's why I said there are so many reasons why people can influence you. And well, the good ones, of course, curiosity, growth, dreams, all kinds of motivational things, which are like, hey, let's go do it. And a better life, I do believe that's, one of the things. But of course, the question is, what is a better life? What determines a better life? Is that being, oh, I'm now at the manager level and I have 10 people. I can tell what to do. Is it, oh, I'm the CEO? Is that the better life? Is the better life I have a big car or I have a big house? Or is better life, oh, I can do whatever I want and I can go wherever I want. There's for everyone a good life is different. But what's the same is when there's a lack of motivation because, well, basically you went from one to the other to the next one. And of course, getting you to feel confident again and be encouraged and excited about life, well, and work, that's quite a challenge. So we talked about children and how to make children more resilient. Well, when we have had some experience in life and we've seen what happens, then of course we want our children to feel secure. We want our children to do better than us. We want to encourage children, and especially nowadays that we know about life. We are not in a situation of war. I mean, if we talk about the Netherlands, we had World War II. We don't have that anymore. We had to rebuild the Netherlands. We've done so. And I'm not saying there is not any fight or war going on elsewhere. But most of the people, exceptions being there, especially exceptions when it comes to countries, we want the children to feel safe and to be able to grow with, as little individuals and be able to follow on their dreams and what it is, what they dream of. And again, there are exceptions. I mean, just look at Ukraine. Uh, those people thought they were good to go to. And then all of a sudden, boom. Not one day, not 2 days, not 1 month, but 2 years. So there we go. No one expected that. And they had houses, and all of a sudden they didn't have houses, and they had parents and families, and then all of a sudden it was gone. They went to go to school, and then all of a sudden it was gone. Now, I cannot influence that one, but we can influence the lives of the kids, our own kids, or the kids from other people. So I don't have any children, but I can brainstorm with my friends about their children and what's going on and what we see happening and what could be a solution when things are not working out. Because when it comes down to it, there's nothing more than looking at which a child which can still dream, which still has all these ideals and wants to conquer the world. I mean, we don't want to take that away. And I'm going to take this one step further. And now I come to us as adults. We talk about midlife crisis a lot. And when you take the adults who have teenagers of their own, what do those teenagers have? The dreams. What do the adults have? Well, that's the question. So some adults are their own boss, they have their own company. Others are working for a boss, but what they have in common is at some point they settled for something And the question, of course, is, are they still happy with what they're doing, or did they have life take its course? So if you go back to everything I talked about, including reorganizations and different managers and, just so going literally from one job to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, what on earth does this still have to do with your original dream? And do you actually know what your original dream was? So it's not that weird that when you look at your children, the teenagers, who of course are asked to make choices. Which direction are you going when you go to college or university? So what are you going to study? Where are you going to? In which country are you going to do what? Then we are talking about a whole different ballgame. And there you are as a parent and you see it. And well, most parents, unfortunately, not all, but normally most parents want their kids to do better than they did. That's their dream. They want to nourish and nurture their kids because, you want them to have the world. But at the same time, there you are. And maybe it's when you're coming home from work. Maybe it's when the kids are at school and you have some time to yourself that you are like, okay, but what is my life like? Maybe your life is like, I go to work, I eat dinner, I talk to the kids, they go do their homework, I go to the gym, and that's it. I go to sleep. And the next day, same pattern, on and on and on and on. What happened to your dream? What happened to your dream? And what are you going to do about it? So, does it make sense that people somewhere in their 40s start want a difference in life? Maybe change jobs, get a sports car, start traveling, whatever it is, look good, all of a sudden wake up and, oh, I need to train my body because, of course, kids are doing it too. And you're like, oh, well, what if I want to have a chance at the market with other people? Of course, we don't want that when we're still married. Well, we do want that when we're still married, but we're not supposed to want that. And I'm not saying that everyone wants that when they're married, because there are some very happy couples out there. But of course, we get older and we need to take care of ourselves too, because, with time, little things start happening. So why do we get influenced by others? Because we see they are in a better shape than we are. We see that our kids can do things that we can't do anymore. We see that other people actually have achieved certain things and living a dream life that we are not living. And that could be a very good motivation to say, you know what? I'm going to change my life. I'm going to do things differently. And then there is also the reason, as in, well, I am not happy with the current situation. So, you know what? I'm going to start working for myself. And there are multiple other reasons. But I do believe that it's in the range of somewhere between fear, being okay with everything. So basically, the cage life, where you think you cannot do anything else, whether that's true or not. The comfortable life, I'm earning money, my kids have a good place, I've got a good house, I can go to the gym, I can go on holiday, we can buy the clothes that we want here, we can drive the car, so, life's good. And then, of course, there's the charged life where people are like, but is this it? Really? I want different things. And then, especially when you have a role model, you see other people do things, especially nowadays on social media, we get influenced by what other people do. We actually have influencers out there, and some influencers, they are being sponsored by the corporate world to get people to buy certain things. So that has no longer anything to do with wanting to leave a legacy. It has to do with, hey, something worked out really nicely. Hey, I got a following, and now let's earn as much money as I can. Whole different ball game. Still influencers. So if I look back on this week, talking about people who are experiencing panic attacks, being in crisis situations, finding out why they are, reading the book about neurodivergence having to do with sensory processing disorders, and then seeing people recognizing themselves. By the way, I recognize myself in there too. That has such a profound impact on them, because at that moment it makes them happy that they're not the only ones out there, but they need to see that there are other possibilities. And it's not until they hear that there's actually something else going on that they are like, hey, what if? And when we talk about the why and influence, then it's the what if. People need to be able to see options again and possibilities, be able to dream and to explore. When that's gone, well, you can wonder what the why is. And, that might very well end up in depression, anxiety, and just wanting to opt out, which is something, of course, we don't want to happen. Now, something comes to mind when I'm saying so, because I do know that for some people it's very merciful when it's done. So, but trust that life can be better, faith, of course. And yeah, I do also believe strongly in the influence from who we surround ourselves with. So when you are in self-development, especially when you're an entrepreneur, but let's say you're in self-development and you want to go to the next level, one of the things that's been talked about a lot is who do you surround yourself with? Now, I talked about how children, when they're at school, some know how to make friends and they are very certain about what they do. Some become insecure, especially when their friends are taken away at school. And well, getting back to the whole security and the whole trust thing and about friends and others, we learn a lot of things from the people we hang out with. Just think about cultural circumstances, neighborhoods we grow up in, kind of work that we see. And, the question, of course, is how different of a life do we want to live compared to our parents or the people we saw growing up around us? But yes, it does happen. There are lots of people who at some point say, you know what, I'm going to leave this village and I'm going to do something else. I'm going to see the wide world and just see what's out there and experience it, which is a good thing. But getting back to who are you surrounded with when you want to grow and you want to go to the next level, we get back to the kinds of lives there are. So there are people who live the cage life. You are like, I cannot do anything else, or they're afraid to do something else. It might be because of circumstances. It might be because of past circumstances. And then there are the people, which is the majority, who live the comfortable life. Like I said, they have a car, they have a house, they can go on holiday, the kids can go to sports, they can go to the gym, they have food. So what's there to complain, right? Wrong. Some people want more. And well, they say that the people who make it, that's only like 2 to 3%. So I think they, in the past it was like 3%, and nowadays it's like 2. And here's the question: when we're talking about going to the next level, how much do you want to do? Which people are you going to surround yourself with? Where do you find the people who want the same thing you do? And do they actually want the same thing that you do? Or do they pretty quickly come up with an excuse? Yeah, but I don't have the time, and I can do this, and I don't have the money for it. And then, of course, you can ask, but how about that desire? Do they really want it? And then we get back to influence. Why do they want to do certain things? Who influences them? Who is their role model? And what are their past experiences? Why do they dare to actually listen to the role model and do certain things which are way out of their comfort zone? Which, of course, has to do with curiosity and with courage and with also with knowing, like, hey, if I can succeed in this, then. But it also comes down to the inner talk. What do we tell ourselves? Because if we don't believe in ourselves and that we can make it, if we've had experience where we used to fail over and over and over again, or at least not go to the next level, you know, when are you going to give up on your dreams and on life? And on when are you going to say, yeah, it's nice they can do it, but I can't? There's a lot of negativity in this world, and it's easier not to do something and sit back than it is to say, okay, now let's go do something and make a difference and make a change, because we like habits. We don't like to go out of our comfort zone. Well, if there's something really tangible and there's a really good reason, but even then, how long can you sustain doing that new thing? And what if it gets hard? What if circumstances change, or you need to make it work? Are you capable of saying and standing up to others and saying, this is what I want, this is what I need, because otherwise I cannot go to that next level? You know, if you're working for a boss and you want to do your own thing, then at some point you'll need to say, I am going to work less than 5 days or less than 4 days. Do you dare? Do you actually dare to say, you know what? I'm going to do it all myself? And that's the question. And then we get back to, why can others influence us? And of course, why can't some people influence us? And it probably has to do with the drive that we have, the dream that we have, the trust that we have in others, the experiences that we have in others. And then, of course, there are people simply out there who we just don't trust for some one reason or another. And then there's also the thing like, hey, but what if I don't understand what you want? That makes it hard to actually say, I'm going to trust you and I'll let you show where I need to go. So, altogether, this is about, why do we let others influence us? Why do circumstances influence us? But also about, well, tomorrow is about how we can actually do it, but the different situations where this actually matters. Situations where we're talking about children, situations where we're talking about work, situations where we talk about people and their personal life. And let's remember that dream. Let's remember what we started out with, when we were still a kid. I talk a lot about the inner kid, and I also talk a lot about future self. I do so a lot of times in meditations. So, yeah, in the original influence challenge, which you can actually obtain if you want to, there is there's a meditation where you can and you can listen to the meditation, and it goes and it talks to the little kid, and it talks to the current version of you, and it talks to the future version of you. And the cool thing is, the future version of you has already seen and done it all. So there's no fear. And it's up to us to actually say, hey, if we want to be that future version, are we willing to actually do the work and listen to that version? Because it might be really scary if we don't know how we are going to do it. We just see, like, oh, that person knows, that person has confidence, but I'm not there yet. But that's something for tomorrow. That's something about the how. For now, if you want to see the other days, make sure that you register to go to ladylexi.com/influence challenge. Let me know what you liked about this. Let me know what you want to talk about, what else. And if you want to access the influence challenge from last month with a little extra, then make sure that you subscribe, and so I can get back to you on what's possible. For now, please remember your dreams. Please remember your options. And don't get discouraged, but get curious. There's so much more that you can do. And yes, it has to do with being willing to do it. It has to do with mindset. But again, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. If you want to see more videos related to influence, then go there. Click that. Yes, right there.